I can't help but find it slightly ironic that I'm recording this while recovering from a bug. Yeah, you're not getting a joke in the opening, just a bit of a factual observation, because that's kind of where I'm at right now. So, this is a Patreon commission review. This was something I had never heard of before I was asked to review it. And it is a film called Recovery. And it stars David Tennant. He's not the only person, but like his involvement, I suspect, was the reason that this was commissioned for me. Because of his connection to Doctor Who, and I do a lot of Doctor Who stuff. Maybe not. The person who commissioned me didn't give me a lot of details for their reasoning behind it. But I will say that if anything I say about the setup of the premise before I start really getting into it intrigues you at all, it is actually free to view on YouTube in its entirety. I might even link to that in the description if I think of it. So if you want to watch this, you can. This is a story of a man named Alan. He works, he has a wife, he's got two sons, one who's getting ready to go to university, another a bit younger. I actually had a hard time pinpointing the younger boy's age because there was how old he looked and how old he acted, and there was a slight disconnect there, but anyways. And Alan, David Tennant's character, he gets run over. He suffers a very nasty accident. He's in a coma for a bit, and when he comes out of it, there is some cognitive damage. There's some brain damage. And the movie is the recovery. The movie is going through the difficulties that he's having, the way it impacts the people around him, and how everybody either does or doesn't cope with everything going on. So this isn't really the kind of movie that I would normally gravitate to. It feels a little overly harsh for me to call it misery porn, but that was kind of where my head was at while watching it. This is a story about something awful happens. Now watch how all these other awful things are a result of it. And watch how things get harder and harder and tougher and worse and worse. And not to say that I can't handle a story where things get progressively worse. I mean, I enjoy the occasional zombie story, and they pretty much follow that same format. The difference is there's an escapism to something like 28 Days Later that this doesn't have, because this is very grounded in reality. So it really does feel like I'm watching a family try and deal with something that really nobody can plan for, and it's actually kind of unreasonable to ask anybody to deal with. And I mean that both for David Tennant's character in terms of what he has to go through to try and function as an adult again, and what his family has to go through trying to help him get there, while also dealing with the fact that he is emotionally unstable, and he's not connecting dots in the right order anymore, and he's potentially dangerous. Like you can't let him cook, you can't let him use a whole bunch of different things because he doesn't remember how to use things properly anymore. And because there is brain damage that's not just like he doesn't remember, it's not just memory, it is the cognitive function. So he has to relearn all this stuff from scratch. So it's not just a matter of, oh, he doesn't remember, I show him once and then he's fine. No, he has to reconnect that entire neural pathway. So it's rough watching. At least it was for me. Because something that feels this grounded and this real, and the tension that builds up in certain moments where a scene starts and you're looking at the siren just going, oh God, because you're seeing all the ways that this setup could possibly go wrong given what you know about the situation and the characters dealing with it, and then you just have to sit and watch as it goes wrong, and sometimes it takes its time doing that. I suppose another thing it reminds me of it's a bit like a cringe humor movie where there's no jokes. and it's difficult for me to watch for the same reason. You know, if a scene starts and I know what's going to happen and I know it's going to be embarrassing and humiliating and degrading for the people involved, I don't enjoy sitting through that. Whether it's for the purposes of comedy, like in cringe humor, or for the purposes of drama, like in misery porn. So, this was not a particularly pleasant viewing experience for me. That doesn't make it a bad movie. I think it just has everything to do with what you either gravitate towards or can or can't handle. And it's certainly a good showcase for David Tennant as an actor. Actually, all the actors do a very good job, which is part of what makes it so difficult. Everybody is very naturalistic. Everybody has a very fluid, established rapport. It really does feel like you're watching people who have known each other for years, and that's a testament to the acting. But then for the kinds of things that make this thing hard for me to watch, it amps that up as well, because it makes it all the more real. I think the reason this hit me harder and was more difficult for me to watch than because this is the kind of story I tend to avoid. But on the few occasions that I've seen it before, it's been stuff like on the Hallmark Channel. So it wasn't well acted, it wasn't well written, it wasn't well shot, and so it didn't impact me the way this does. Because I could kind of laugh it off and be like, "Oh God, this is stupid," but I couldn't with this because it's convincingly. It seemed, I have no firsthand experience in anything like this, but from my limited experience perspective, it felt very real. It felt like, from a writing standpoint, whoever wrote the script had done the legwork to try and come across in the scene structure and the dialogue how something like this would actually pan out. It is, as I said, very well acted. It is very well shot. The camera oftentimes gets intimate with the characters in a way that is kind of voyeuristic. You know, it just... David Tennant steps into a shower and, the camera's just in there with him with just these sort of very naturalistic shakes and this handheld feel. But usually when you say something shot handheld, you're thinking it's jittery like that. No, it's just sort of this natural ebb and flow like you would have if you were standing in the space and just sort of standing steadying yourself. And in that way, it kind of feels almost documentary style and almost invasive, which again adds to the effect of what it's doing, but also adds to the effect of what made me uncomfortable watching it. So it's absolutely effective in what it is doing. It's just one of those situations where, for me, what it's doing is something that makes me uncomfortable to watch, but I can still recognize the skill and the talent that went into it on pretty much every level. I didn't look into the production history. I don't know if this was like a BBC TV production or what this is. But it looked like it was probably low budget. I didn't recognize anybody other than David Tennant, but whatever it was, they worked well within their means, and they put together a well-constructed piece of work. Just not in a genre I would normally go for. But see, that's part of what the Patreon commissions are for. People can, if they want, get me to step out of my comfort zone. And sometimes that results in something, oftentimes that results in something I never would have watched otherwise. And sometimes that's a really eye-opening experience. And other times that's oh boy, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go do some comfort food viewing. I'm gonna catch up a little bit more on The West Wing. That's what I'm gonna do now. That's my current comfort food watching. Liz got me into it, and the fact that I've now tangented onto that probably means I've said everything that I have to say about this. As much as I said that it made me uncomfortable to watch, I really hope that the person who commissioned me isn't like, oh God, I feel bad. Don't. It's good for me to feel uncomfortable about these things sometimes. It is helpful for me to have those experiences to remind myself of how I respond to things. Because if you just avoid something that you don't like forever, you lose the thread of what the issue is and why you process the way that you do. And I think there's some degree of good to be done. Just sort of being reminded every now and then, yeah, this thing that you're not comfortable with. Have you thought about it lately? Have you thought about why that's the case? Is that still the case? I mean, there's some... I'm not upset that I got commissioned to review this. I find some value out of watching it. I won't watch it again, but not because it's not good. Just because what it is not for me. But, yeah, that's it. That's it. It's March. It's my birthday month. I've got a link for my Amazon wishlist down in the description. Although if you really want to give me a lovely present, I would recommend you consider supporting me on Patreon in any amount. It is helpful and there are rewards, and I won't do the full pitch now because I am tired and beat. Whatever, like, subscribe, you know the things, but you don't have to do them either. Even though I'm sick, like, I'm not trying to play the sympathy card here because you're the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned.